My father hung a piece of moldy cured meat on the beam. Every day he would prick it with a needle. The grease would drip down from the pinhole. Our family of 4 would line up, opening our mouths to catch the dripping fat to stave off hunger. That day it was my turn. I was simply too hungry. I couldn't help but lick the meat with my tongue. My father slapped me right in the face, scolding me for being greedy. You wretched girl. The very next day, a stranger came to our house. He tossed half a copper coin onto the ground. That was my price. The day the trafficker took me away, I didn't cry or make a fuss. My mother kept shedding tears, but she lacked the strength to hold me back. She merely tied a piece of red cloth around my head. The wheels turned bit by bit, taking me further and further away. The cart was packed with girls, all about the same age as me. Each one sallow and emaciated, dressed in rags with no energy to speak. There were only the sounds of sobbing. The cart would stop from time to time. The curtain would lift. Outside stood unfamiliar adults, inspecting us like livestock. The girls who were chosen would always shrink back in fear, and then be forcefully dragged out. Their crying would quickly fade. With each one taken away, the crying in the cart would suddenly grow louder, and then turn into an even more desperate weeping. Every time I saw hands reaching in from outside, my body couldn't stop trembling, because the outcome of being sold was nothing more than 3 paths: a poor man's wife, a rich man's servant, or a girl in the brothels. None of these paths were easy, but I also knew staying home meant certain death. So I didn't blame my father, nor did I blame my mother. I just wanted to see my little brother. Would he ever know in the future that he once had an older sister? Just thinking about this, my heart filled with an unstoppable sadness. Not everyone in the cart was crying. Q1 didn't cry. She was 2 or 3 years older than me, always sitting quietly. I would occasionally gather my courage to speak to her. Seeing how young I was, she would just listen to my endless chattering, and never found me annoying. At night, when everyone else had fallen asleep in a heap, she would quietly scoot over next to me and tell me about her family. Whenever I look at you, I think of my little sister, she said, in a very low voice, her eyes suddenly turning red. From then on, I started calling her sister. The cart wheels slowly turned. The 2 of us huddled tightly together. The traffickers were vicious, fearing we would have the strength to run if we were full. They only fed us once every few days, and it was just watery porridge you could see your reflection in, or half a hard biscuit that scratched the throat. I was so hungry my head spun. But sister would always wait until no one was looking, save half of her portion and secretly slip it to me if I refused. She would pretend to be angry, saying she would never talk to me again, to coax her. I only dared to take a tiny bite each time. However, there were exceptions on the cart. There were a few girls who were exceptionally beautiful and dressed cleanly and neatly. The traffickers said they were going to be sent to the palace. Not daring to neglect them, they always got to eat solid rice. Occasionally, you could even smell the scent of meat. I looked at those sisters who could be sold at any moment, and then at those pretty girls waiting to enter the palace, and vaguely understood the fate of people like us. From the moment we were born, our lives were destined to be different. I didn't know what was waiting for me ahead. I leaned closer to sister. This broken cart let the wind in from all sides. Only she was warm. I never dared to provoke those girls going to the palace, but they were bored out of their minds and started picking on us, sometimes deliberately throwing biscuit crumbs at our feet to see if we would pick them up like dogs. Sometimes they would intentionally step on our fingers. Every time they bullied me, sister would immediately pull me behind her, glaring at them with those dark, heavy eyes of hers. Those girls were a bit afraid of Sister Z, so they didn't dare clash with her directly. At most, they would just roll their eyes. Once they turned away, Sister Z would whisper to me, "Ignore them. Just endure it and it will pass." I nodded. I was willing to endure anything else, but I never expected that one day they would actually target the red hair tie on my head. This was the only keepsake my mother left me. Naturally, I refused to give it up, but who knew the more I refused, the more they wanted it. They even resorted to snatching it. I desperately protected it. This is what my mother left me. Hand it over. The mother who sold you for half a copper coin. Sister Z, who was fast asleep, woke up. Seeing this scene, she rushed over. How dare you? Lead her? The other palace-bound girls also surrounded us. The cart instantly descended into chaos. The trafficker lifted the cart curtain. What are you howling about? Are you all looking for death? Seeing us scuffling together, his face turned livid. Especially seeing those palace-bound girls with rumpled clothes. He flew into an absolute rage. He forcefully pulled Sister Z and me apart. Looks like you don't want to live anymore. Once we reach our destination, I will sell you straight into a brothel. Hearing this, I trembled all over in fear. The tears wouldn't stop flowing. Right at this moment, Sister Z suddenly reached into a gap in the floorboards and dug out a sharp-edged piece of broken stone. Then she slashed it right across the lead girl's face. Two of the girls were instantly streaming with blood. Everyone was stunned. Even the trafficker froze. Sister Z stared at the trafficker. Now these two. You won't be able to sell either of them. The trafficker came to his senses. Looking at those two with bleeding faces, he raised his hand about to strike Sister Z. Wait. Don't do anything stupid. We are almost at the capital. Now their faces are already ruined. If you get rid of us too as well, where will you find replacements? The trafficker's hand hung in midair. Sister Z pointed at me and herself. Look closely. The two of us aren't any less pretty than them. If you let us take their place, you can still save this assignment of yours. If you can't deliver the people, or deliver ones with ruined faces, will your bosses spare you when you return? Think about it carefully. The moment these words fell, the cart fell into a deathly silence. Only the whimpering of the two slashed girls remained. The trafficker was stunned. With his eyes, he looked me and Sister Z up and down. Before, because we were dirty and frail, he hadn't given us a proper look. Now looking closely, although I am thin and small, my features are quite delicate, and Sister Z even more so. Especially those bright eyes of hers. Consider yourselves lucky, you two little things. From today on, you two will go take their place. Afterwards, Sister Z and I put on the clean clothes brought by the trafficker's men. We no longer had to be sold into brothels, but the place we were going was the Imperial Palace. Sister Z, is the palace better than home? I don't know, but at least the two of us are still together. The cart continued to creak forward. Getting closer to the capital, I leaned against Sister Z, watching the fields blurring past the window. Carrying a heavy future in my heart, the cart entered the palace. Sister Z and I were separated. I was taken to the Imperial wardrobe, and she went to the Imperial laundry. She would secretly run over to see me from time to time, sneaking me food or teaching me about palace politics. She was smart and had a sweet mouth. It wasn't long before she got close with many managing sisters in the palace. I heard the higher-ups thought highly of her while I was much clumsier, slow to learn the rules, and slow to speak. But these hands of mine seemed born to handle a needle and thread. The sisters at the wardrobe initially found me slow, but later, seeing my embroidery patterns, they changed their tune. They often brought fabric to coax me into embroidering while waiting to pick up the work. They loved to huddle together and gossip. I would lower my head to thread the needle, while keeping my ears open to listen. The person they talked about most was the Emperor, saying the Emperor sat on the dragon throne at such a young age. In those first few years, the Empress Dowager's family had all the say. But the Emperor is truly formidable. It only took him 3 years to seize back the power, completely suppressing the Empress Dowager's family. The one who contributed the most was the noble Consort's brother. He is a prominent general of the current court. At that time, he stood by the Emperor's side without a second word, allowing the Emperor to succeed. Therefore, the Emperor treats the noble Consort exceptionally well, always giving her the best of everything. But I found it strange. Since she is so favored, why isn't the noble Consort the Empress? The older sisters laughed. Her Majesty the Empress was the crown princess at the Emperor's former residence. The two of them share a deep bond from growing up together. So no matter how good the noble Consort is, she can only remain a noble consort. The next time I saw Sister Z, I treated these matters like fresh stories and poured them all out to her. I said the Emperor is truly formidable. The noble consort is truly glorious. And Her Majesty the Empress is truly blessed. After hearing my assessment, Sister Z didn't say a word. She just smiled. That smile was a bit strange, as if it held so much hidden inside. After a long while, she let out a long sigh. This inner palace is truly interesting. Everyone has what they seek. What the noble consort seeks is love. So she doesn't care if she is empress or not, while what the empress seeks is power. So regarding the feelings between the noble consort and the emperor, she can easily turn a blind eye. Immediately after, she turned around and asked me, "Little sister, have you ever thought about what you want most in this palace?" I thought about it very seriously. That the two of us can be safe and sound. Serve diligently until we are 25 and released from the palace. I've calculated it. By that time, I can save up quite a bit of silver. I will take that silver and go home to find my parents. Silly girl, Sister Z said. Then what do you want? She didn't answer me, her eyes looking into the distance. It was only later that I understood what she wanted. That night I couldn't sleep. By chance, I saw Sister Z and someone in a guard's uniform standing behind the artificial hill. I jumped in fright and quickly hid myself. When Sister Z returned alone, I jumped out to tease her. I said, "Why didn't you tell me? So what you seek is a good husband." She was startled and hurriedly covered my mouth, pulling me into a darker corner. "Don't spout nonsense. I saw everything. Who is that guard brother?" "That is no guard. That is the Emperor." I sharply raised my head, my mind buzzing. That was the incredibly formidable Emperor they talked about, actually sneaking out at night in a guard's uniform. I couldn't believe it at all. But Sister Z pulled me down to sit. She said she also discovered it by chance. One time, near the Imperial Laundry, she saw a guard taking a walk alone. His bearing was nothing like an ordinary person. She was mindful and secretly kept an eye out. Only then did she know the Emperor was making visits in disguise. She mustered her courage and calculated when he would appear, pretending to watch things not far away, humming a folk tune from our hometown. Once or twice, he indeed noticed me. I just pretended not to know who he was. When he asked me, I would answer timidly, and he wouldn't ask much. And then it's just like what you saw just now. He seems to quite like talking to me. In her voice, there was a different kind of anticipation. My mind was in complete turmoil. Sister Z, this is too scary. If you get caught, that is the Emperor after all. What is there to fear? Little sister, didn't you ask me before what I want in this palace? Before I never had an answer. But now I can tell you. What I want is to never be a slave or servant again from now on, and to never live at the mercy of others again. So I must climb up step by step. And the first step is to first have the status of a palace maid, marrying the Emperor. Think about it. He is the reigning Emperor. If I can climb high enough to be with him, then there will be endless glory and wealth in the future. No one will ever dare to bully us again. Anyway, since the heavens let me enter the palace and gave me an opportunity, I am going to take a gamble. I was frightened by her words, but also felt they made sense. So how are things progressing between you two now? Is the Emperor willing to marry you? It's not clear yet. However, since he comes looking for me to talk, it means he is interested in me. I can't rush. I must make him remember me. Later, just as Sister Z had predicted, that guard came to see her more and more frequently. Sometimes at night, sometimes in the evening. Sometimes Sister Z would see him, but mostly she used the excuse of unfinished chores to avoid him. Sister Z, how dare you still refuse to see him? Silly girl. What is obtained too easily will not be cherished. I have to make him feel that I am different from those women in the palace trying every way to curry favor with him. After a while, one day Sister Z suddenly ran to the Imperial wardrobe to find me, her face bearing an irrepressible joy. It's done. What's done? He revealed his identity to me. He said, I am smart and sensible. And unlike anyone else, I was so happy I almost jumped up. A few days later, the head eunuch read the Imperial edict. Sister Z was named Karen. She moved into a beautiful palace, wearing silk and satin. She didn't forget me, and quickly requested me to serve by her side. From now on, we sisters will be together in one place. If I have mine, you will have yours. I looked at the completely transformed Sister Z, feeling both happy and a bit afraid. Happy that we no longer had to be separated. Afraid because this imperial palace is so vast. Will the road ahead be easy to walk? Sister Z was highly favored. The emperor seemed as if bewitched by her. Every 2 or 3 days, he would run to Liuli Palace where we lived. The people in the palace are best at reading the wind. Those who used to ignore us now constantly wore smiling faces. One day the emperor came again. While Sister Z was speaking with him in the room, I carried the tea in. Lowering my head, I respectfully set it down. Just as I was about to retreat, the emperor suddenly called out to me, "Raise your head." My heart panicked. I timidly raised my head. The emperor's eyes stared straight at my face, as if he were stunned. After quite a while, he slowly uttered a sentence. "You look very much like an old acquaintance of Zen." I was so frightened I quickly lowered my head, my heart pounding fiercely. The emperor's old acquaintance, a Sister Z standing beside, couldn't help her curiosity. Pity the emperor didn't tell her. "What is your name?" "This servant is called Kunyi." Zen will remember it. From then on, whenever the emperor came to Liuli Palace, he clearly paid more attention to me. I was already a bit afraid of him, and with him always looking at me, I would get nervous and become even more prone to making silly mistakes. Once while serving him pastries, my hand shook, and I almost dropped the plate. Another time he asked me a question. My mind went completely blank, and my answer was completely beside the point. I was scared to death, terrified he would blame me. But strangely enough, not only was he not angry, but every time I made him burst into laughter. He said to Sister Z, "This little maid by your side is quite simple and adorable, always making people laugh." Indeed, this concubine also thinks so. Having her keep this concubine company is like having a pistachio. I felt a little wound in my heart. I didn't intentionally want to be a source of amusement. I was genuinely afraid of him. But the emperor seemed to genuinely think I was fine this way. Once Sister Z was called away by the empress. In the palace, there was only me and a few little palace maids. The emperor somehow casually strolled over. He saw me fretting over a few freshly picked flowers. Not knowing how to arrange them in the vase, he walked over and stood beside me. "Zen sees, these flowers don't look good arranged like this. The flowers are pretty, but are you unsure of how to arrange them? Let Zen teach you. Inserting them at an angle like this. Doesn't it look much better?" I watched him personally demonstrate, so surprised my mouth fell slightly open. He put down the flowers. Looking at my silly expression, he suddenly sighed. "This naive and ignorant look of yours truly resembles her so much. When she came to the palace to play as a child, she was also this pure and innocent. She wasn't afraid when she saw Zen, and even pestered Zen for candy. But alas, things have changed and people are gone. The person has passed away." Zen was heartbroken over this for a long time. Only then did I understand he was looking right through me. To see the shadow of another person, I felt a bit strange inside. But I was even more curious about the person the emperor mentioned. Just who could it be? I finally understood that he was looking right through me. To see the shadow of another person, but the more curious I was, the more the emperor refused to speak of it. I originally thought I'd never have the chance to know in this lifetime. However, the heavens still favored me that day. When I followed Sister Z to pay respects to the empress. "Rise, all of you. Raise your head and let Bengong see you." I timidly raised my head and happened to meet Her Majesty's gaze. Her original faint smile instantly froze. The teacup in her hand swayed slightly. Her eyes became extremely complex. There was shock, there was nostalgia, and a trace of sorrow I couldn't understand at all. She told me that I looked very much like her younger sister Lian Yueso. She was the old acquaintance the emperor mentioned. Immediately after, the empress walked over, taking my hand. "What is your name? How old are you? Are you used to living in the palace?" I answered honestly one by one. She listened very attentively. The way she looked at me became increasingly gentle. But beneath that softness, there was always an indescribable emotion hidden. From then on, Her Majesty treated me exceptionally well. She frequently called me to her palace, or rewarding me with some pastries and food, or simply having me stand by and chat with her. She liked looking at my foolish expression when I spoke, saying my nature was simple, like a blank sheet of paper. The days in the palace appeared calm on the surface, but hidden beneath were undercurrents. Sister Z had gained favor, and there were many who were jealous. The noble consort bearing the brunt of it. Her surname is Su, daughter of a founding meritorious minister's family. Always relying on her brother being a great general who protected the emperor. She had always been domineering in the palace. Before the emperor solely favored her, but now there was Sister Z, taking away the emperor's attention. How could she swallow this anger once at a palace banquet? Somehow the topic shifted to Her Majesty the Empress governing the inner palace too leniently, causing some below to forget their status and harbor improper thoughts. These words. Who didn't know she was pointing fingers at Sister Z? Even though Sister Z was favored, but noble consort was so overbearing. With so many concubines present, not a single one dared to speak up to defend her. Finally, the Empress, holding a wine cup, smiled and tried to smooth things over, but she didn't give Her Majesty any face at all, releasing her anger wherever she pleased. How could Sister Z not feel it in her heart? I looked at her, yet I couldn't do anything. Not long after, the noble consort's targeting shifted from the shadows into the open. Sister Z endured it on the surface, but held a fire in her heart. Within a few days she fell ill, unable to eat anything. I was so anxious I hurried to find an imperial physician, but ended up bumping into the noble consort. Isn't this the little maid serving Karen Z? Where are you heading? Answering noble consort. Karen Z is gravely ill. This servant wishes to fetch an imperial physician. Ill? She was perfectly fine this afternoon. How come by evening she suddenly needs an imperial physician? Could she be feigning illness to vie for His Majesty's pity? It's not like that, Your Highness. Karen Z is truly burning up with a high fever. Insolent. The master hasn't asked you. Who allowed you to raise your head? The noble consort slowly walked up to me, lifting my chin with her sharp nail guard. Bengong sees you, this girl, with your shifting gaze. Mumbling your words, you must be feeling guilty. Did your master tell you to fake an illness, to stir up trouble in front of the emperor? Still dare to talk back. It seems if I don't teach you a lesson, you won't know the rules of this palace. Men, slap her mouth for Bengong. Two momos immediately stepped forward to grab me. Two momos immediately stepped forward and grabbed my arms. Noble consort. What this servant says is the absolute truth. I beg you to let this servant fetch the imperial physician. I count out time and time again. A momo raised her hand. A heavy slap landed on my face. I was beaten until I saw stars. My ears were buzzing. They scolded me while they hit me, saying I offended Her Highness and didn't know the hierarchy. I was dizzy, feeling my consciousness gradually blur. Finally, something struck the back of my neck hard. My vision went black. When I woke up again, I found myself in a warm embrace. At the tip of my nose was the faint scent of ambergris. It was actually the emperor. I was so scared I didn't dare to move a muscle, thinking I was still dreaming. He looked down at me. Only then did I realize we were already at the entrance of Liuli Palace. Sister Z, with a coat draped over her shoulders, came out to greet him with a pale face, seeing the emperor carrying me. She was also stunned. Your Majesty, the emperor didn't speak. He gently placed me on Sister G's bed and ordered the imperial physician following behind examine her. Later, from the gossip of the palace servants, I pieced together what happened. It turned out the emperor was passing by the imperial garden and saw the noble consort's people beating me, even knocking me unconscious. He immediately flew into a rage, reprimanded those carrying out the punishment, and personally carried me back. The emperor watched the imperial physician treat the wounds on my face and remained silent for a long time before saying to Sister Z, "It was Jan's negligence, letting you suffer grievances." Sister Z shook her head with reddened eyes. My heart was pounding, secretly looking at the emperor's cold profile. For the first time I felt that this person I had always feared didn't seem so terrifying after all he saved me and even carried me back. I felt his hands trembling slightly. The imperial physician finished checking the pulse, stood up, and then he turned around and knelt before the emperor. Congratulations, Your Majesty, congratulations. I stood to the side, my heart in my throat, until I heard the imperial physician say Karen Z is pregnant. Only then did I breathe a sigh of relief. Then a huge joy surged in my heart. Sister Z is having a baby. The emperor was overjoyed holding Sister G's hand. The smile in his eyes could not be hidden at all. He immediately issued an edict, promoting Sister Z to concubine Z, and rewarded her with many things. From then on, I was busier than anyone else. Whenever I had free time, I would dig out the best fabrics I had saved for the unborn little master, sewing little clothes and little belly bands. One day, I was working hard on my embroidery under the corridor. The emperor came and silently walked over to my side. He watched me sew for a while. Kun Yi, the eyes of this carp you are embroidering. How did you embroider them? One is big and one is small. I was so startled the needle almost pricked my hand. I looked up and saw the emperor's smiling eyes. I pouted, looking at the needlework in my hand. It's not true. They are clearly about the same size. The emperor picked up a piece of little clothing I was almost finished with, looking at it over and over, and shook his head. The fabric is good. The intention is also good. It's just this pattern is too ordinary. The currently popular patterns outside the palace are much more exquisite than this. They even use gold and silver threads, wrapped with silk threads to embroider, when the sunlight shines on it. That is truly beautiful, outside the palace. I was only 8 years old the year I entered the palace. I have long forgotten what the patterns outside the palace look like. My eyes couldn't help but reveal envy and curiosity. Do you want to go out and see for yourself? Then we'll take you out to see truly good things. And look at the freshest patterns. I was so shocked the needlework in my hands fell into the basket. How can we do that? The palace rules are strictly enforced. The emperor didn't give me a chance to refuse at all to the head eunuch beside him. He whispered a few instructions, then turned around and playfully blinked at me. Change into ordinary clothes. Then we'll take you out for some fresh air. Just like this, in a complete daze, I followed the emperor and a few guards disguised as family servants out through a side gate. Sitting in the swaying carriage, I looked out the window at the bustling streets, sugar figure sellers, acrobatics performances, and vendors calling out to sell snacks. It was incredibly lively. The emperor took me to the largest silk shop. The patterns inside truly dazzled my eyes. Indeed, much more vibrant than those in the palace. He had the shopkeeper bring out all the newest patterns for me to see, and bought me several packs of embroidery thread, along with pattern books. After looking at the silks, he took me to eat the famous wonton soup by the street. The hot wonton soup was very savory. I ate until sweat beaded on the tip of my nose. He also bought me a sparkling sugar figure. I held it in my hand, unable to bear eating it for a long time. We played for a whole day. In the evening, he took me up a tall tavern. Standing by the railing, we could see more than half the capital. As evening lights were lit, suddenly a whistling sound pierced the night sky, followed by gorgeous fireworks one after another. Blooming brightly, the wind blew my hair and rustled the hem of his clothes beside me. I secretly turned my face to look at him. His profile was no longer as tense as it was in the palace. At that moment, my mind suddenly blurred. So taking off the dragon robe, he is also just a young man who sneaks out to play with a girl and watch the fireworks with a smile. The thought made my heart skip a beat. I quickly turned my head back, but he seemed to have caught me peeking. You look really beautiful when you smile. I froze for a moment, raising my eyes to meet a pair filled with tenderness. Charming peach blossom eyes. Beside my ear was his warm breath. In this moment of intoxicating fireworks, fluttering hearts were unavoidable. When we returned to Liuli Palace, the palace had already lit its lanterns. My arms were full of spoils, my face still flushed with excitement. The emperor walked half a step ahead of me, seeming to be in a very good mood as well. Next time when Zin is free, Zin will take you to taste pastries from another shop. I was just about to nod when I looked up and saw Sister Z standing under the corridor at the palace entrance. It looked like she came out to wait for us. Her gaze fell on the emperor, and then on my glowing face. Her face wore her usual warm smile, but for some reason, in that very instant, I saw clearly that the look in her eyes as she watched me suddenly changed. But Sister Z didn't ask me about leaving the palace. All her thoughts were entirely focused on the child in her womb. We looked forward to this child's birth every single day. From top to bottom in the palace, everyone served her with the utmost care. But on this particular afternoon, the noble consort suddenly took an interest and invited Sister Z for a walk in the imperial garden. Sister Z originally wanted to decline, but the noble consort's position was high, and she didn't dare offend her openly. I didn't tag along, and just stayed in the palace to continue sewing the little clothes. Not long after, chaotic shouting could be heard from outside. I rushed out, only to see Sister Z being carried back, her face deathly pale. There was a shocking patch of red on her skirt. She tightly gripped my hand, tears mixed with cold sweat streaming down. The imperial physician arrived. He shook his head. Sister G's child was gone. She looked as if her soul had been ripped away, lying motionless on the bed. The tears wouldn't stop flowing. Hearing the news, the emperor rushed over and was utterly furious, immediately ordering a thorough investigation. Upon investigation, right on the steps where Sister Z fell, they discovered rosin oil that someone had deliberately smeared. Someone had intentionally led her here. At this moment, all the evidence pointed to the noble consort. The emperor stormed into the noble consort's palace and fiercely threw the uncovered evidence onto the ground. That was an unborn child. How could you bear to do it? The noble consort hurriedly knelt down, pulling on the hem of the emperor's robe. No, your majesty. This concubine is indeed jealous of concubine Z, but this concubine's heart towards you is clear for all to see. The emperor couldn't listen to any of it. He was in the heat of anger, wanting only to seek justice for Sister Z. Right at this moment, Her Majesty the Empress arrived. To everyone's surprise, she actually stepped forward to defend the noble consort. Your Majesty, the noble consort's temperament is indeed a bit arrogant, but this concubine guarantees with her life she's absolutely not a person who would harm an imperial heir. There is no conclusive evidence for this matter. Convicting her based solely on the rosin oil is somewhat too hasty. Just as the emperor was about to speak, the empress then added another sentence. Your Majesty, are you really going to repeat past mistakes? Lian Yu's tragedy. Could it be that you want it to happen again? These words were somewhat baffling, but the two of them seemed to understand what they meant. Hearing the name Lian Yue, the emperor's face instantly turned deathly pale, as if all his strength had been drained. He staggered a step back. In the end, the noble consort was demoted. Demoted to Beauty Sue. She stood rooted to the spot, looking at the empress. Tears of remorse flowed down. She wasn't remorseful for harming Sister G's child. Looking at the empress, tears of remorse flowed down. She wasn't remorseful for harming Sister G's child, but rather remorseful for herself. In the past, relying on her family's power and favor, she frequently humiliated the empress, but in her time of crisis, the empress actually stepped forward to speak in her defense. How could this not make her feel ashamed? How could she not regret? After sending off the empress, the emperor and I returned to Liuli Palace together. Sister Z was lying weakly on the bed, asking the emperor, how did he punish the noble consort? The emperor froze for a moment. A trace of guilt appeared in his expression. Sister G's eyes reddened. She tugged at the emperor's sleeve. That was our child. Our first child. I looked forward to it so much. It was already 6 months along. Just like that, it's gone. She cried as she spoke. It broke my heart to hear it. The emperor was also helpless, only letting out a long sigh. The Su family holds immense power, and with the empress speaking in her defense, Xin has no other choice. This was his final explanation. After the emperor left, the palace quieted down. Sister Z leaned weakly against my embrace. She cried for her child, cried for her bitter fate. As she cried, her voice gradually lowered, carrying a chilling hatred. Why was my child harmed by someone just like that, while the murderer can still live perfectly well? Her fingers tightly gripped the corner of the quilt. Then don't blame me. At this moment, something seemed to vanish from her eyes. Her child was gone, and Sister G's heart seemed to have died halfway too. She lay listlessly on the bed all day. The emperor felt guilty and issued 2 consecutive imperial edicts. The first promoted Sister Z to Consort Z to console her for the pain of losing her child. The second unexpectedly bestowed me the title of Kiran Kun. When the imperial edict came down, I was just about to feed Sister Z her medicine. Hearing the eunuch's shrill voice reading the edict, my hand shook. The medicine bowl crashed and shattered on the ground. My mind went completely blank. Kneeling on the ground, not understanding how this could happen. I never thought of becoming the emperor's concubine. I only wanted to stay with Sister Z as her little palace maid. Wait until I am 25 to leave the palace and go home. I subconsciously looked at Sister Z. There was no expression on her face. She just looked at me coldly. That gaze was so unfamiliar it chilled my heart the day I moved out of Liuli Palace. Sister Z did not get up to see me off. I stood outside the door of her bedchamber. Choked with sobs, I called out Sister through the door curtain. It was completely silent inside. After a long while, her indifferent voice came through. Kiran Kun, you are now also a master of a palace. Look out for yourself in the future. I moved into Quixia Pavilion not far from Liuli Palace, becoming one of the many concubines in this inner palace, an inconspicuous one. The emperor would occasionally come to see me, most of the time just sitting for a bit, saying my clumsiness was amusing, and could let him temporarily forget the troubles of the front court. I frequently went to find Sister Z, but she always used various excuses to decline seeing me, occasionally encountering her at palace banquets, wearing intricate and gorgeous palace attire, surrounded by other concubines like stars around the moon, circled in the middle. She talked and laughed cheerfully. Between her brows and eyes was just the right amount of charm, but that smile never reached her eyes. I watched helplessly as she used just a few casual words to make the noble lady who had mocked her lowly origins in the imperial garden offend the emperor and be banished to the cold palace. I heard with my own ears how she used a disfavored beauty to frame another concubine competing with her for favor, causing her to be thrown into the slave quarters. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Once taking advantage of no one being in her palace, I barged in, pulling her sleeve, crying and begging her. Don't be like this anymore. I beg you to stop. I am truly afraid for you. I only seek to be safe and leave the palace when I'm 25. Is that okay? Sister Z slowly pulled back her sleeve, the corners of her mouth curling into a mocking smile. Leave the palace, little sister. You are still so naive. She walked to the window, looking at the square piece of sky outside. From the day we were sold for half a copper coin, we already had no home. Even if we leave the palace, where could we possibly go? Stop being foolish. From the moment we entered the palace, our lives were bound to this place. This inner palace is our battlefield. Either you step on others to climb up, or you get trampled underfoot and crushed into mud. Hearing this title, she suddenly let out a scoff. Sister, what a fine word, sister. Since you are still thinking about our ridiculous sisterly bond, then I will only ask one thing of you. Never fall in love with the emperor. My heart sank fiercely. She walked closer to me, her fingertips gently brushing my cheek. Once you give your heart, between us there will truly only be a fight to the death. I looked at her. At this moment I understood. We had ultimately parted ways and set off onto completely different paths. The emperor heard about the matter between me and Sister Z. He probably felt he owed me and treated me even better. He wasn't as strict about rules as he was with other concubines. When he came to my place, he was often very casual, sometimes seeing me sitting by the window in a daze. He would quietly walk over and take a bag of sugar-roasted chestnuts from outside the palace out of his sleeve. I would peel them for him to eat, and he would watch me with a smile. It is still the most comfortable here with you. When he was tired from reading memorials, he would come to Quixia Pavilion to sit, saying nothing, just leaning on the couch, letting me embroider beside him. He said the sound of the needle and thread passing through the fabric could quiet his mind. I knew this was his kindness towards me, a gentle kindness without too much desire. But I looked at the deep palace walls outside. I just felt a sense of emptiness. It was another spring. Sister Z climbed higher and higher to become noble consort. Her momentum almost overshadowed the empress. In her palace, people coming in and out were all flatterers. I saw her from afar, wearing the ceremonial attire of a noble consort, her head adorned with pearls and jade, looking exactly like noble consort Su when she was at her peak. Occasionally, Her Majesty the Empress would come to my place to sit for a while. She was a gentle person, But between her brows, there was always a lingering sorrow. That day, as she held her tea, she suddenly mentioned Sister Z. Karin-kun, you are currently enjoying immense imperial favor. Have you ever thought that this will sooner or later put you in opposition to noble Consort Z? I lowered my head, not knowing how to answer. She let out a soft sigh and told me the story of Lian Yue. She was my younger sister from my maiden home. Not only did her appearance resemble yours, but her personality was even more similar. When she first entered the palace, she always thought noble Consort Su was a good person. Later, seeing my sister becoming increasingly favored, the noble consort framed my sister for stealing an imperial gift, and the emperor refused to uphold justice. That girl had a fierce temper, unable to clear her name. She passed away just like that with her unredressed grievance. So all these years, the emperor has always felt he owed her. Your Majesty, since it is like this, you yourself said that the noble consort harmed your sister. Then last time when the noble consort was framed, why did you still speak up for her? Hearing me ask this, Her Majesty the Empress froze for a moment, and then laughed out loud. It is precisely because I saw with my own eyes how my sister died that I knew the noble consort was also set up that time. If I didn't help her, could I just watch another unjust case unfold helplessly? Bengong knows you sisters share a deep bond. Please rest assured Your Majesty Sister Z would not do such a thing. She may have changed, but she wouldn't harm innocent people. Little girl, you are still so silly. In this palace, the word trust is the most deadly. After she left, I sat alone for a long time. I knew that right now everyone in the palace felt that Sister Z was a vicious woman. But I remembered that Sister Z who used her body to shield me from the wind and snow in the cart. Remembered that Sister Z who secretly slipped the only half of a hard biscuit to me. Her habits were long branded deeply in my heart. So I truly couldn't just cast her aside because of a few words from others. I still believed in her. Even if the entire inner palace said noble consort Z was ruthless, I would always believe that in the deepest part of her heart. There always remained a trace of how we relied on each other for survival. That was my sister Z, the person who treated me best in the whole world. After that day, the emperor gave Sister Z the power to co-manage the 6 palaces. And it was from that day on that Her Majesty the Empress began to fight with Sister Z, moving from the shadows into the open. You advance a step, I block a step. I watched with trepidation Sister Z won this final round. She found some evidence from somewhere, indicating that Her Majesty the Empress's maiden family was forming factions for selfish interests in the court. The emperor hated this the most, and was absolutely furious, although he did not depose the empress. He never went to the empress's palace again, and demoted several uncles from the empress's maiden family. People in the palace all said the emperor and empress were estranged. I knew this must have been Sister G's doing. My heart felt terribly stifled. I secretly went to see Her Majesty the Empress. Her palace was terrifyingly deserted. She sat alone by the window looking outside. I knelt before her, apologizing to her on behalf of Sister Z. Your Highness, I am sorry. Sister Z, she didn't do it on purpose. She just what? I couldn't continue speaking either. Her Majesty the Empress didn't blame me. She just smiled. That smile was extremely weary. She pulled me up. Silly child, the grievances in this palace. How can a single "I'm sorry" clarify them? Bengong doesn't blame you. You must protect yourself well. However, not long after, a shocking piece of news exploded in the inner palace. Her Majesty the Empress had passed away. It was poisoning. Rumors flew everywhere in the palace. Everyone said it was noble consortsy who struck the deadly blow. The emperor was furious, ordering a thorough investigation. After digging around, the clues actually pointed straight to Sister G's palace. That former noble consort who had already been demoted to Beauty Sue, probably wanting to repay the empress for protecting her back then, wanted to kill Sister Z to avenge the empress. But how could Beauty Sue be a match for Sister Z now? The guards easily subdued her. Sister Z didn't even let her get close, just looked at her coldly, and uttered one sentence: insubordination. Act according to the law, and ordered her to be beaten to death on the spot. Hearing the news, I was extremely unsettled. I went to beg the emperor. I wanted to see Sister Z. The emperor looked at me crying uncontrollably on the ground, finally sighed and agreed. When I went over, the palace she lived in had already been sealed. The servants had all been taken away. The setting sun streamed in. Through the carved window lattice, she sat alone in the empty main hall, wearing her favorite noble consort ceremonial attire. On her head was the phoenix hairpin. The emperor had rewarded her when she was just made concubine Z. Seeing me come in, she raised her head, her face expressionless. Are you also here to blame me? I shook my head desperately, tears streaming down my face. No, Sister Z. I know it wasn't you. The Empress's matter was definitely not your doing. You were framed. Weren't you? Silly girl. Even at this point, you still believe me, but this time, you believed wrong. It was me who did it. Why? Why? She occupied that position for too long. As long as she lived, I could never become Empress. I would always be a step below her. I am not resigned to that. Little sister, I am truly not resigned. At this moment, a little eunuch with his head lowered walked in holding a cup of wine. That was the poisoned wine bestowed by the emperor. Sister Z looked at that cup of wine. Her eyes darkened, and then she started trembling. Her hand was shaking. The wine sloshed and spilled out. I struggled desperately, but was held down tightly by the guards. Number. Little sister, the one thing I regret most in this lifetime is bringing you into this palace. I originally thought that if you followed me, you could live a good life. No longer having to suffer from cold and hunger. No longer living at the mercy of others. But I was wrong. I brought you into another fiery pit. Don't blame me. I don't blame you, Sister Z. I have never blamed you. I only hate that I couldn't take you away sooner, watching you sink deeper into this. Yet I am completely powerless. Immediately after, she tilted her head back and drained that cup of poisoned wine in one gulp. The wine cup fell from her hand, making a crisp, shattering sound. She looked at me, her body slowly going limp and collapsing, a trail of dark blood seeping from the corner of her mouth. But her eyes kept looking at me until they completely closed. My Sister Z was gone. The one who in that bumpy carriage stuffed the last bite of biscuit to me. The Sister Z who protected me with her frail body ultimately died in this man-eating imperial palace. Died right in front of me. Sister Z just left like that. From then on, my whole person lost its soul. The emperor came to see me. I hid in the inner chamber and refused to see him. No matter how he coaxed, I wouldn't make a sound or see him. I knew I was blaming him. Blaming him for driving our sisterly bond apart. Blaming him for ordering Sister G's death. Blaming him for clearly knowing the bond between me and Sister Z. Yet still trampling on us like this. Just like this. We fell into a cold war. The people in the palace are best at reading faces. Seeing that I was out of favor, they began to flatter the high and trample below. The charcoal in my rations was damp. The meals sent to me were cold. But I didn't care. Living like a walking corpse every day. The days just went by like this, passing day by day, until the palace bureau sent in a new batch of little palace maids. I accidentally heard a managing Momo giving a lecture, and a name made my heart skip a fierce beat. A meow that was the name of Sister G's youngest sister. I secretly went to take a look. That little girl named Meow shrank at the very back of the crowd, with her head lowered timidly. Her features looked exactly like Sister Z when she was young. Looking at her, my nose suddenly stung. Those snobs in the palace bullied Meow for being new, pushing all the dirty and tiring work onto her, and even cutting her food rations once I saw with my own eyes an old Momo pouring spoiled slop into a mouse bowl, forcing her to drink it. Meow held the bowl, tears welling in her eyes, but not daring to resist. I was furious. I rushed over and knocked over the bowl. If I see you bullying her again, Bengong will kill you all. Looking at the terrified Meow, I pulled her to the water vat and carefully washed her hands. Thank you, Lady Kun. I looked into her eyes, my heart feeling both sour and soft, gently wiping away her tears. Don't be afraid. From now on, I will protect you. The Emperor somehow heard about this and came to Quixia Pavilion to find me. He probably thought this was a chance to ease our tension. Kun Yi, Zin knows you are kind-hearted. Zin saw that little palace maid. If you like her, have her transferred here to serve you. I still didn't want to talk to him. In the end, he still left in disappointment. I brought a Meow over. I taught her the rules. told her which people in the palace she must not provoke, and which places she must not go. I saved all the good food from my rations for her. Watching her slowly grow a bit plumper, and color returning to her face, I seemed to be using a meow to desperately make up for what I owed Sister Z. One night, a meow was talking in her sleep after falling asleep, crying and calling for her mother, calling for her sister. I sat by her bed, tucking in the corners of her quilt, looking at her tear-stained little face. I thought to myself, Sister Z, do you see this? I have grown up too. I will learn from how you took care of me to take care of your sister. As long as I am in this palace for a day, no one will be allowed to bully her. The Emperor and I remained in this stalemate. He came a few times but was met with a closed door. After that, he didn't come as often, until one snowy night. There was suddenly a commotion outside. A palace servant ran in panic to report, saying the Emperor was drunk and coming straight towards Quixia Pavilion. No one could stop him. Before I could even react, the door was pushed open with a loud bang. The Emperor, reeking of alcohol, staggered inside, walking right up to me. Kun Yi, how long are you going to blame Zen for Sister G's matter? She brought it upon herself, harming the imperial heir, poisoning the Empress. Which one of these is not a crime punishable by death? Did she bring it upon herself? Your Majesty, regarding Sister Z, was it truly entirely brought upon herself? Could it be that in all this, there wasn't a single trace of your doing? He was stunned, the weariness on his face turning into surprise, as if knowing me for the first time. Everyone in the palace thinks I'm foolish, thinks we are both easily deceived. But I just don't like to fight. It doesn't mean I can't see clearly. For example, the mastermind behind all this is your Majesty. You deliberately favored Sister Z, allowing a palace maid from the imperial laundry to soar to the heavens, making her a target for everyone, and deliberately showing favoritism towards Sister Z in front of the noble consort, provoking the noble consort to want to eliminate her quickly, targeting her at every turn, and even tacitly approving the power to co-manage the 6 palaces, being given to a palace maid with no backing. It was you secretly pushing the conflict between Sisters Z and the Empress, making them fight to the death. You treated my Sister Z as the most useful knife to clear away the stumbling blocks in your court and in her palace. Sister Z finally saw it clearly in the end, so that is why she begged me never to fall in love with the Emperor. She was protecting me, afraid I would follow in her footsteps. In the end, she confessed to all the crimes and readily drank that cup of poisoned wine. Also because she was afraid I would be foolish and go to avenge her. Even I was completely deceived, thinking she was truly fighting for herself, not knowing that every step she took was within your calculations. All of this, I have seen clearly now. His throat tightened and didn't say the rest of his words. I raised my head, fearlessly meeting his gaze. Is your Majesty wondering how I knew? That personal maid beside the noble consort secretly came to find me after the noble consort passed away. She told me that someone actually tricked the noble consort into making peace with Sister Z, and casually mentioned that the flowers in the imperial garden were blooming beautifully. That is why noble consort Su invited Sister Z for a walk in the imperial garden. So from the moment I heard those words, I understood my Sister Z was being used. There were many other questions I couldn't figure out that have found their answers at this very moment. The Emperor remained silent for a long time before finally speaking. Karen-kun. From the first glance Zin saw her at the imperial laundry, Zin felt she was ambitious and would be a useful knife. She had no backing and could be easily disposed of after the matter was done. So, Zin played along and used her to balance the inner palace, suppress the maternal relatives, and do the things Zin could not do. Zin admits to all of this. In this matter, Zin is indeed completely at fault. But there is only one thing Zin has never deceived you about. At first Zin noticed you, indeed because you resembled Liang Yue, making Zin feel a sense of familiarity. But later, every time Zin spent time with you, accompanying you out of the palace, watching you face a bowl of wontons, able to smile so happily, seeing you so quiet and peaceful, Zin slowly realized, you are so wonderful. His eyes were red. I looked at him, suddenly finding it incredibly ridiculous. Your Majesty, if your heart towards me is genuine, then how could my heart towards you not be? Looking at this man, The night outside the palace seemed to float before my eyes again, under a sky full of fireworks. His smiling profile. Such a handsome youth. Taking me to experience the vibrant life outside the palace. Stepping forward to protect me when I was bullied. Remembering to bring me my favorite snacks. My heart is made of flesh too. How could I not be moved? This concubine also wants to forgive you. Also wants to live in perfect harmony with you. And grow old together. But I just can't. I cannot betray Sister Z. Whenever I think of you, I will think of Sister G's appearance before she died. My heart aches so incredibly much. I promised her. I did indeed love you. But this love has long been blocked by these palace walls and by power struggles, tightly separated by a human life. Your Majesty, it is already impossible for us. Please let me go. And let yourself go too. Okay, this is my final answer. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something more, but I simply knelt down with my forehead pressed against the freezing ground. Your Majesty, Amiao doesn't understand anything. She is just a child. If you truly ever loved me, I beg your Majesty to show mercy and send us out of the palace. He stood there, his shadow stretched long. After a very, very long time, he finally replied. Zin understands, then he slowly turned around and walked away step by step. It snowed the day we left the palace. Amao's little face was blown red by the wind, asking Sister, where are we going? We are going home. I know. Sister Z used her life to buy me this path of survival. From now on, the sky is high and the sea is vast. I only wish to take her sister and live a good life together. Never looking back.